Hello and welcome to another weekly live session with me here at C Admissions. I am excited to focus our attention in the next couple of weeks on school-specific conversations. And today is no different. We're going to be actually talking about the school comparisons. We've done videos in the past where we talk about school-specific values. So this is more of a comparison between very coveted programs that applicants really love to apply to and to be considered for. Before we dive into today's topic, and I have a lot of slides, so I'm going to try to keep things moving. I just want to talk a bit about logistics. So as I usually have done in the past, I have a few slides put together to anchor our conversation. During any point of my discussion, I encourage you to write your questions in the chat. We are currently live on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. I think those are the only ones that we're live on. And whichever platform you're joining, please, write your questions. We won't show your name on the screen, so don't worry about, having your name appear. It will be anonymous, but we will read the question, live. I will be looking at my other screen over here, which has comments. So I'll be monitoring those along the way. So please definitely write your questions as we proceed. This week, we'll be talking about HBS and Stanford. Next week, we're going to actually come back to Wharton team-based discussion interview preparation. We we are eagerly excited to have Wharton announce interview invites on October 24th, and that is a pre-interview preparation session that we'll be discussing essentially how to prepare for your Wharton interview. It is a unique interview style, and that's why we've also launched a Wharton team-based discussion mock preparation. So it's a simulation of the Wharton experience. And if you're interested in being notified when that the program essentially becomes available and it's open for registration, definitely sign up to be notified on our website. So the registration link is on the screen as well as in the comments too. Next week, like I said, we're going to talk about Wharton, so you can also register for that event as well, and that will show up on the screen and in the comment section as well. We have updated slightly our website, so you can always look at any upcoming events just by going to cadmissions.com. There's a top banner that shows our upcoming events, and you can easily navigate and register for all the events that resonate with you that you're interested in, and we have all of October currently posted there. All right, so why don't we get started then? I will be moving slides. So for those of you who do not know me, I am the founder of C Admissions, and here we focus on supporting applicants go through the entire process of the MBA application journey, essentially. That goes from the reflection, essay development, strategy development, obviously all of the minutia, resumes, letters of recommendation support, and all the way to interview preparation. It is a fully comprehensive, very structured approach to the MBA journey. So if any one of you is interested to talk about how we can support you, definitely reach out to schedule a call. There's no obligation for those calls. We want to get to know your story and see if our services match your needs. So for today, we're going to focus primarily, obviously we're doing a comparison, but we'll start with a little bit about each program separately. Then we're going to dive into the differences between the programs, some admission insights in terms of what the schools are looking for, and how they're different, of course, crafting your MBA application to each of the programs, and then choosing the right program for you. The Q&A, obviously, we are in a space where chronology is how we structure things. So the Q&A is at the end, listed here, but just know that I will be answering questions along the way as we proceed in the slides. All right, let's talk about Harvard. So the Harvard MBA class is one of the largest classes that is in the MBA curriculum, like in the MBA top 20 sphere. The class of 2026 is 930 students, so it's very, very large. They have an acceptance rate of about 15%, and this is as of the class of 2023. There's only 2 schools in the top 20 MBA programs that have 100% case method, which means that by the time you graduate Harvard, you will have gone through at least 500 cases in the 2-year span that you're there. The case method is a lot about the discussion and a lot about building strategies, so macro level leadership. It's an important element of what Harvard offers. And as you can see, even in the post-MBA opportunities, leadership development programs is something that many applicants go through. Consulting and finance and entrepreneurship, obviously, those are quite common across top business schools. HBS is a generalist school, and you can definitely go from there anywhere that you want. They have obviously a really strong alumni body, both locally as well as internationally, and they do have very much a global focus. The other school that has a 100% case method in the top 20 is Darden. So these are the only 2 that have that method of teaching. All the other schools have a mix. And with GSB, so Stanford, the teaching style is left to the professor in terms of what the professor feels is the best method to teach that particular class that they're offering. It is very much at Stanford, there's very much a personalized learning approach. And of course, there's a lot of leadership development labs that they focus on. The class is much, much smaller than HBS. It's less than half. So, 424 students are admitted, at least the class of 26. And the important thing to remember, as I know some of you here are also going through and waiting for those interview invites, or are going through the interview invites because HBS has already released their invitations. Essentially, it's for Stanford particularly, they do only invite 2, a maximum 3 students or applicants per every seat that they have available. So the interview for Stanford is much more challenging to get than HBS. As I mentioned, the curriculum is very much around, what is the best method to teaching the course, and it's very much focused on personalized learning. The culture at GSB is focused around the entrepreneurial mind, the growth mindset that Carol Dweck talks about in her book, Mindset, who is also a Stanford professor. If you haven't read that book, I highly recommend it. The entrepreneurial mind does not necessarily mean that you have to be an entrepreneur when you apply. It just means that you have to think like an entrepreneur. And you obviously are going to show that in the application. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. The culture is very much around innovation. So, when you apply to Stanford, it's not about going the traditional path and keeping the status quo as is. Rather, it's about innovation. How can we disrupt, right? And the culture is very much close-knit. They create an environment and even discussions around building close-knit relationships by being vulnerable. And that's what one of the components that really makes GSB stand out. Post-MBA opportunities are very much in that startup, VC, tech space, leadership space. Of course, people go into consulting and other areas as well, because Stanford has a global network that is definitely very, very strong. But most of the interests are around the technology and startup space, and of course VC, given that it is located in Silicon Valley and the opportunities that it itself presents. Okay, so what are the program differences between HBS and Stanford? Obviously, I talked about just a few slides ago. Sorry about that. The class size and diversity of the class is, of course, very different between the two. So part of your evaluation process is what does this mean for you in terms of where you thrive most. HBS has a very large class size, it's more globally diverse, and GSB is definitely much smaller, more intimate, and it creates an opportunity to be a lot more vulnerable than HBS does. Teaching, we talked about, Harvard has this case method. If you're not someone who thrives in a debate style kind of environment, then HBS may not be for you. GSB has a customized learning leadership lab, as I mentioned earlier, in terms of how you go about learning at GSB and what you want in terms of where you're planning to go in terms of your goals. HBS has traditional, because it's a generalist school, it has definitely much more traditional applicants going into traditional leadership roles and traditional industries as well. Obviously, there's entrepreneurship too, so this is not to say that, oh, if you go to Harvard, you can't be an entrepreneur. That is not the case at all, but it's more on the quintessential traditional business path, versus GSB has more entrepreneurship and technology environment, as well as opportunities in terms of where you are going. So these are some of the things that you want to keep in mind in terms of what you want to do. I know a lot of applicants go through this process, and of course everyone wants the best of the best and which one is the most competitive program to apply to. I would strongly encourage applicants to really think deeply about what it is that they want, what kind of environments they thrive most in, and what kind of environments you thrive most in, to determine which one you should be targeting. Sometimes it makes sense that you target both. Sometimes it makes sense that you only target one of the two. And the application process for both is quite taxing, and obviously you want to make sure that you make the best decisions in terms of ROI. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the admission process. We're going to start with HBS and then we'll move into GSB. HBS does tell you on their website what it is that they're looking for. Leadership potential is one of the first components. So schools like these and all top 20 schools look at your past as evidence for your future success. So it's really important that you are able to capture from your past what you have been able to do in terms of your impact, your leadership, your contributions, so that they have a sense of what potential do you have for the future career and for the future success, right? So the leadership potential comes through in your obviously past roles. It doesn't mean that you have to have a leadership title, right? So you don't have to be a manager. You don't have to have a title that it's quintessential to a leadership position. However, you must show that you have the leadership potential, and that's the way you show up in different projects you worked on, the kinds of ownership that you have in the work that you do, and that's going to be evidence, of course, in your application throughout. It's not it only shows up on your resume. It shows up throughout your application. Analytic aptitude is really, really important. You have to have strong academics, or the potential to have strong academics. So sometimes applicants have really strong undergraduate performance, but not so much GMAT or GRE score, and sometimes vice versa. But overall, you must show that you have an analytic aptitude, and sometimes work experience does play a role into this ability to showcase that you have an analytic mind will have the ability to have success in that kind of discussion-based space. Obviously, HBS has its own values, and you must show that you fit those values. So I said earlier, the leadership component, the global awareness, collaborative mindset, but also I think a personal awareness of your own development and your own journey to who you are today. When it comes to essay strategy of your HBS application, you must communicate your leadership experiences as well as your own personal growth. And this doesn't mean that you are showing, how you are as a person in your friendship environments. Typically, those are always the easiest ones. But it's more about showcasing your growth from your personal growth from a journey of a professional, right? Whether that is in your extracurriculars or in your professional environments that you have been in up until the point that you apply. So the application for HBS, while the questions this year have changed and they are much more straightforward than an open-ended question we're so accustomed to, what this means in terms of your essay strategy is that you are really going to want to still think about ways that you can communicate who you are as a character and your growth, because they are looking for those kinds of individuals when they are evaluating a candidate's profile. So now if we move to GSB, it's slightly different, right? The personal qualities that they're looking for, because they created an environment where authenticity and vulnerability is part of the everyday language, they are looking for individuals who have a deep self-awareness and are very much authentic in their applications. Now, this does not mean that you're going to list your laundry on your MBA application to GSB. It's really about honoring what makes you uniquely you, right? And that typically requires quite a bit of reflection, because the world that we occupy, the spaces that we typically occupy, always have a tendency of trying to put us in boxes where we don't think about our authenticity as much as we should be. But the MBA application, especially your Stanford application, is going to require you to be thoughtful in that way. GSB is very much about impact, and as larger the impact, the better it is going to be, right? So the way they have phrased the questions in the application throughout allows you the opportunity to showcase what kind of impact you have had up until this point. The greater the impact, the better it is, of course, but also what kind of impact you're looking to make in the future, right? It's more about how you're going to, what problems you see, especially in the professional spaces that you are interested in being in, and how can you impact that, make it better for progress, essentially. Obviously, when you think about the school that is all about innovation, it's about authenticity, it's about impact, someone going in that who is very rigid in their thinking is not going to be one that's going to be successful at the GSB. So they are looking for individuals who are open to new ideas, who are curious and looking to solve problems. So that character that Carol Dweck talks about in Mindset, in the book Mindset, is exactly what GSB is looking for. So if you haven't read that book, highly recommend, particularly if you're looking to apply to Stanford. They do also have the essays, What Matters Most to You and Why. And this is where you demonstrate your authenticity and your reflection to your personal values. So what makes essentially, honestly, it's what matters to you, right? What are the things that you care deeply about, and how have you engaged with it? They also are going to ask you for your future in terms of, why GSB, or why Stanford, actually, it's the question. You want to be able to demonstrate that you are going to have the impact that will be disruptive in the space that you're looking to make an impact in, whether that's the energy space, the consulting space, the finance space, the anything in between, essentially, right? You want to think deeply about what are the problems and how are you going to solve them with the support of Stanford as a whole, right? And that question is there purposefully. They're not saying, why GSB? Rather, they're asking why Stanford. So the essence of this is to know that they recognize that not only one area is necessary for innovation and success. It's a combination of many different disciplines that are required to bring about innovation and change. So how do we craft standout applications? So whether you choose to apply to one or to two of these programs that we're talking today, obviously you're going to apply to more, hopefully more than just these two, right? You're going to apply to 5 to 6 schools overall, but particularly these two. Make sure that you tailor your experiences and your relevant strengths to the program's unique culture, right? As you can see, the schools, the Harvard and Stanford, while they're both very coveted and very much appreciated in terms of the business school space, they are the ones, the holy grails, right, of business school admissions. The application, the culture, the environment, the opportunities are very, very different. So this is not I'm going to use one application or one essay for the other. It's really about tailoring your experiences to capture your audience, where you are applying to. For both of these schools, however, authenticity and self-awareness is key in order to be successful. You should be thinking about developing, reflecting, brainstorming, diving deeper into your experiences to be able to really capture an application that is reflective of your experiences and your unique values that you bring to the table. Obviously, this is business school. Even though you're not required to have a leadership title to be successful in this program, you must showcase your leadership abilities and aptitude on all fronts. So not just what you say, but also what your recommenders say in their letters of recommendation, right? And obviously choose recommenders who can actually speak about specific examples that can capture your leadership potential, but also the character that they're looking for. It's really important that your entire application is cohesive in terms of being able to capture, all of the characteristics of what they're looking for throughout the application, and not just what you say, but also what the recommender says as well, right? So communicate with your recommender consistently on what you would like for, or what you will be talking about, and how they can support that further in their letters of recommendation. All right, so how do we choose the right program, right? So when you're looking at the right programs, you should be always, no matter what, always keep in mind your goals, right? Business school is a stepping stone to your future. It's not the end all. I know that getting into either one or both, it's a testament to your strength and your abilities, and the kind of character that everyone wants to be. However, it's really important that you recognize that once you're in, it's not about stopping there. It's about what do you do from that point on to get you to where you want to go. And looking at the programs that you're applying to from the perspective of your career goals is something that I highly recommend every person, no matter what program you're applying to, that you go through that process, right? How is this school going to help me get to my goals? HBS, as I mentioned earlier, it's about leadership and sort of like that quintessential leader. It's much more focused on strategy, and also there's a lot of opportunities in the traditional space. If you tell HBS that your goal is to go into consulting, it's not going to be that big of a deal in terms of them being comfortable with that. However, if you say to GSB that your goal is to go into consulting, they may not necessarily be as receptive to that, because they will say, well, you have all these other 19 other programs that you can apply to and be really able to leverage their resources to get you to consulting. We want that innovation mind, right? So you have to have careers that are perhaps slightly different, but you want to align with that. If you don't see yourself as an entrepreneur, there is no point in applying to GSB. I'm going to be straightforward here. Okay, so you also are looking at the culture fit. 2 years can be, it can feel like a day if you are having fun. And it can feel like eternity if you are not having fun. So making sure that there's a culture fit. If you feel the entire time that you're going to be intimidated by every single person that's there, because they're so smart, they have some, really amazing experiences, and that is debilitating you from being able to progress and move forward, then don't go into those kinds of environments. You want to be in environments that allow you to thrive. Obviously, environments that are going to be helping you still get you out of your comfort zone and challenge you and help you think differently. And obviously, both of these programs will do that. But there's a difference in culture. And if you can, I would also strongly encourage you to visit campus and feel what it's like to be there. Feel what the conversations are like. Feel what the vibe is at each programs. And then, of course, the long-term network. This is, something that's going to be important. If you need, obviously, to be around VCs, then there's a clear path as to which ones you should be applying to. But obviously, both of them have really global networks and really strong networks that you can tap into, whatever kind of career you choose to have. All right, so I'm going to go to some questions. I think we have about 3 minutes left. I'm going to stop sharing the slide so we can, so I can move my screen also. And type your questions while I do this on my end. Perfect. Okay, so we're going to go with some questions that came through the registration form first, while you are writing your questions in whichever platform you're joining us from. All right, so how do I determine which programs align better with my long-term career goals? The component here that I would say is make sure that you are very clear as to what your goals are. If you are undecided, this can be a challenge. If you're undecided, you want exploration, then probably you may want the more traditional path, unless you have a really strong inclination towards entrepreneurship and technology. And then you have opportunities to slightly explore with GSB, but you really need to have clear goals. It's almost impossible to choose a program that's right for you without your goals, right? So if you haven't worked on your goals yet, this is the right time, because we have not a lot of time until round 2 submissions, and you need to have this clear before you can move on to deciding which program to target. Which school would provide more support for someone wanting to pivot careers after graduation? I think both of them will provide quite a bit of support in terms of pivoting careers. There's a lot of applicants who actually pivot careers with an MBA, so this is not going to be the challenge. The challenge is going to be what kind of career you're looking to pivot into. If you're looking to pivot into something that's more traditional, then I would say HBS is going to be the better path. And if you're looking to transition into more of that innovation space, right, whatever that sector is, then GSB may be a better option. All right, last question. Are there differences in the interview process of HBS and Stanford? Yes, absolutely. So HBS has an interview style that is rapid fire. Typically, you you will have a 30-minute interview, no more than 30 minutes. And typically in that 30 minutes, the entire conversation between you and the interviewer, meaning them asking questions and you responding, you typically go through about 26 questions in 30 minutes. So that means that you must have responses that are ready or at the ready for everything and anything. It's very much customized to your own application, to what you wrote in your application. Whereas Stanford has alumni, typically an alumnus is connected, or you are paired with an alumnus who is in the space that you are looking to be in, so they can evaluate your goals too. And it's much more conversational. It is really them getting to know you and getting to understand kind of what your values are and how your personality and character fit the GSB community. They're both intense in terms of the preparation requirement to be successful there, but they're very different from one another. All right, so I think we are out of time. Next week, we're going to talk about Wharton's team-based discussion. So we're kind of circling around the quote-unquote Holy Trinity. Please register if you are, if you've applied to round one, particularly, and you want to know how to prepare. Or if you're applying to round two and you want to have a preemptive sort of mind image of what this entails as you move forward, this session is going to be really helpful for that. Until then, I am excited to hear your comments. Please comment on your, on the video. If you like it, give it a thumbs up and share it with your community of others who are also applying to business school. Thank you again, and I will see you next week.